Title slide, Janine Wilson. Achieving the Dream Teaching and Learning Institute Adaptive Courseware using Gateway Courses, Lessons Learned from the Every Learner Everywhere initiative.
Welcome everyone. We're going to get started in a few moments.
A person appears in the upper right corner of the frame.
Can y'all hear that? Can y'all?
Yes, we can.
Y'all can hear my cat meowing? I'm sorry.
I think it's cute. It's totally fine, Janine. All right. Well, welcome everyone. We have a cat in tow, it sounds like, and lots of great presenters today. I'm Susan Adams, the Associate Director of Teaching and Learning at Achieving the Dream, and I'm here with my colleague, Rwanda Garth McCullough, and we are going to present to you a session on adaptive courseware in Gateway Courses. So lessons learned from our Every Learner Everywhere initiative. So our panelists today, well, actually, why is it not moving? There we go. So Rwanda Garth McCullough, do you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I'm Dr. Rwanda Garth McCullough, the Director of Program Development. Happy to be.
And we have Stacy Souther here from Cuyahoga Community College, and she will be introducing her in depth in a few moments. We also have Janine Wilson, who is a health information management student at Indian River State College. We'll also be introducing her in depth. And Dwayne Keeney, Associate Dean of Liberal Arts at Cuyahoga Community College. So we're excited to have this discussion today, but we want to get a sense of who's in the room today. So we're going to launch a very brief poll and ask you to indicate what is your current role at your institution. And if you do select the other and you feel comfortable, we'd be happy to have you place that in the chat as well. But we just wanted to get a sense of who's here in the room.
Slide title, Who's in the Room, red bar graph, text, poll.
All right, so we've got a highest percentage of faculty, a couple faculty developers, instructional designers, some administrators, and we do have some students here. So wonderful to see that, a swath of roles. So I'm going to end that poll there and people can see the results. There we go. All right, well, welcome. And our agenda today is that we are going to do some introductions, which we've just done. We're also going to give a little framing to the Every Learner Everywhere initiative so we can understand what's being talked about today and adaptive learning courseware and the work we've been doing. And then we're going to speak about our case study series that we've done to really like, what are the lessons learned? What were the challenges? What do we wish we had known? And then we're going to open it up to have a panelist discussion. We've got representation from the faculty, we've got representation from leadership, and we've also got a student here to help represent her experience occurring using adaptive learning courseware. And then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A, but we also welcome you to put questions in the chat throughout. We'll be monitoring that as we go along.
Thank you, Susan. So Achieving the Dream is an active partner in Every Learner Everywhere network, which affords us the opportunity to work with 12 amazing partner organizations who share our drive to advance equity by transforming post-secondary teaching and learning. Every Learner Everywhere works with colleges to build capacity to improve student outcomes with digital learning through services, technical assistance, and toolkits.
Adaptive learning pathways.
Our collective mission is to help institutions use technology to innovate teaching and learning with the ultimate goal of improving student outcomes for Black, Latinx, Indigenous, poverty-affected, and first-generation students.
Text, Every Learner Everywhere Achieving the Dream.
The Every Learner Everywhere Network's initial first initiative began in 2019, and it focused on helping colleges to implement adaptive courseware and high-impact gateway courses, which, as you know, are vital for student retention and have persistent low completion rates that present serious barriers to student success.
Slide titled Adaptive Courseware Early Success Initiative.
So the Every Learn Everywhere's Adaptive Courseware for Early Success Initiative was focused in 3 states, Ohio, Florida, and Texas. And the initiative supported ATD and APLU to work with 7 of our leader colleges and 5 Association of Public Land Grant Universities to redesign over 40 courses in 8 disciplines in ways that integrated adaptive courseware.
Title: Every Learner Everywhere Case Study.
Based on this work, Achieving the Dream developed a series of case studies that we are so excited to share with you today that examine the different approaches to implementing adaptive courseware that each of our 7 member institutions took. The series also includes 4 discipline-based case studies, one for math, science, social science, and humanities, which explores how courseware is used in each of these disciplines to best serve students from with that discipline perspective. The case studies summarize the findings of interviews with college leaders, faculty, instructional designers, developers, and students from our leader colleges, and were done in conjunction with our great partners, Communication Works. I have to give them a shout out for all of the work that they did and gathering this information and presenting it in very accessible ways.
Title: Faculty Student Administrator.
The Lessons Learned report is the final piece of the 13-part series and will be released this month. The report highlights various benefits of adaptive learning in community college courses from various stakeholders' perspectives. The series provides strong examples of what is possible when faculty-led initiatives receive support from cross-functional teams to intentionally integrate active teaching strategies with technology. They also showcase the impact that learner-centered practices have on students' academic experiences. And today we have the privilege to hear from 3 dynamic panelists from participating institutions who will share their experiences of the lessons learned from their respective perspectives. So Susan, will you please do the honor of introducing our first speaker?
The slide reads:
Absolutely. So Stacy Souther is a professor of psychology at Cuyahoga Community College. She earned her master's in developmental psychology at the University of Toledo, and she serves on the Eastern Campus as the psychology coordinator, as well as an ambassador and conference reviewer for the Lilly conferences on college and university teaching. So she's really taking that bird's eye view and helping move so much transformation along. So she's going to tell us today about the faculty experience of using adaptive courseware, including her design process. So how did she integrate this technology into her curriculum? And also share her experience of doing that work in a collaborative peer-to-peer experience. Stacy?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you again for taking time to attend our session. So I'm at Tri-C. So Cuyahoga Community College is might be better known to you as Tri-C. We are located in Cleveland, Ohio. So just to set the stage a little bit for you, Tri-C is a multi-campus, multi-site community college in Northeast Ohio. We're right off of Lake Erie. We're the largest community college in the state of Ohio, where we offer more than 1,000 credit courses each semester and more than 200 career and technical programs. And we grant short-term certificates, certificates of proficiency, post-degree professional certificates, as well as offer more than 600 non-credit workforce and professional development courses. So we're busy here. Tri-C was one of the 7 ATD leader colleges that participated in the Every Learner Everywhere Adaptive Courseware Initiative. And as part of this grant, we developed a large faculty learning community to support faculty from multiple disciplines from across the college. Every faculty member implemented an adaptive courseware in a gateway course. And we met regularly throughout the academic year with faculty, with our Center for Learning Excellence staff, with other administrators and stakeholders to help us do so. Dwayne's going to speak with you in a little while about the details from the leadership side. He'll talk more about that faculty learning community and whatnot then. But I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I experienced as a faculty member.
Souther by Bookshelf.
This grant really came for me at the perfect time. I was really getting discouraged by the text I was using and the resources that we had, the cost of my students were going through. I was really ready to explore open educational resources and to think about a redesign for my class. So being involved with ATD and the Every Learner Everywhere grant was really an incredible match. I didn't even really know what adaptive courseware was when I signed up for this, but I knew I wanted something more to help my students. And suddenly I was part of an initiative that supported me every step of the way. As faculty, and if this resonates with you, you can feel free to use your emotions there and give me a thumbs up on this one. It's scary, right? To try to make something new happen. Making major changes to our pedagogy is a big deal. We worry about what might happen, right? What if something fails? What if our outcomes are lower and our negative evaluations come through? This is a huge issue that can happen, especially if you're non-tenured or you're adjunct faculty. It also can be very time consuming. And with all our day-to-day commitments, including committee work and other aspects of our teaching, it really can be daunting to take on such a project. But I have learned that it was definitely worth it. And I quickly learned that when you find the right adaptive courseware that is built really upon the science of learning, and it gives you strong resources for both faculty and students, and then you also have your administrative system supporting you, the redesign process really isn't so daunting. Personally, again, I teach psychology. I was working with my colleague, Melissa Resnick, who was a full-time lecturer at the time with us, and we completely redesigned our general psychology class to integrate this new adaptive courseware. We adopted a courseware that aligned well within our curriculum that we already had, and it had very robust resources at our disposal. So Melissa and I were able to take the collective materials that we had already accomplished ourselves from our own years of teaching, right, and integrate it into the courseware that the courseware provider did for us. And we developed a shell that we worked from. Melissa was applying her the shell to her in-person courses, and I was doing it for asynchronous online courses. So we are trying to attack it in all different directions. The one thing I learned is that adaptive courseware really provides automatic and amazing formative assessment opportunities that helped us be able to redesign our course really fully with a lot less effort than we thought we'd have to do. It was still a lot of work, but having our faculty learning community plus that support from ATD and Every Learner Everywhere, we used the summer semester to make plans and to organize, and we successfully launched our courses in the fall semester of 2019. And in fact, the launch went so smoothly that we quickly realized that we needed to roll it out to our other faculty at our campus. And I'll talk about that here in a moment. And in a nutshell, adaptive courseware supports student success. And when you find the courseware that works for your discipline, it does so by providing a really robust framework of materials for both the faculty member and for the students. And in my experience, the adaptive courseware really took the load off, right? It assisted with lots of the aspects of the course, like that formative assessment, right? It was doing things to help my students succeed. And I didn't have to do extra work, extra grading to do that. Also did things like student communication. My courseware automatically emails students and helps keep them in the loop and to keep them connected. By this courseware really taking off some of the load off the faculty member, you have more cognitive bandwidth really to work on some of the bigger picture things for that course. So the initial plan was for Melissa and I to pilot in that fall of 2019, then maybe add 1 or 2 more faculty in the spring and summer of 2020, and then not do a full change until the fall of 2020. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we moved much more quickly than that. We spent the second half of the fall of 2019 semester working with our OLAT online learning office and our Center for Learning Excellence to train our adjunct faculty on how to use our course learning management system. We're a Blackboard school, and things like the course, the process of backward design and how to design their courses. And we provided our course shell for our adjuncts to use. The courseware provider came in and did some training with our adjuncts so they could use the courseware, but the ones that we chose was very user-friendly, didn't need a lot of training, which was great. But they could adopt what we had used, we had prepared for them, or they could add some of their own things, have the academic freedom to do that. So as a result, by spring of 2020, we implemented the courseware in all of our general psychology courses at my campus. And Melissa even simultaneously was able to develop and introduce the same courseware into her upper level lifespan development course at the same time. So I think seeing how quickly we were able to implement this, when you have a strong adaptive courseware system, it makes it easier to make these changes. Now, to be fully transparent, Melissa and I did receive some release time to be able to put more time and more quality time into doing this. And having that support and the energy from both the administration and our colleges as part of that faculty learning community was really instrumental in that successful implementation and scaling. Every faculty member in the FLC was encouraged and supported whatever courseware they chose. Some of us, like us in psychology, found our solution in the first attempt, and others took a few tries. Some things worked and some things didn't. But what we did is we all worked together throughout the year to brainstorm ideas, to figure out solutions for any issues that arose, and we all celebrated each other as we took on this process. What I found, I think, even most valuable beyond the student success is the process of the relationships that I've met and built with the faculty that were involved in this FLC. I met and developed relationships with faculty that I wouldn't otherwise had been involved with and would never have probably interacted with them beyond cursory interactions. In fact, one of these faculty members called me this past summer from science. She's a science colleague from another campus. I remembered that we had great success in psychology and what she had been doing wasn't working so well. We had a few conversations and she was able to adopt our courseware to fit into her students as well. So we have those relationships and those connections, which really do make a lot of difference. So adopting adaptive courseware really will change how your students learn. It helps your students learn how to learn. Right? So many of our students don't know what it means to study or to learn, and adaptive courseware helps teach them to do that. It also helps you be a more effective instructor. I feel it made me a better instructor because it gave me a different perspective. The time and effort and the risk that faculty take in this course design will come back to you in many ways. I work with our psychology courseware provider to survey our students every semester. And so far, the students have been extremely positive about this experience. So just want to share with you a little bit of the data that I got this past fall. Actually, I just received this data recently, but in fall of 2021, this is across all the students surveyed from our campus using this courseware, 93.22% of the students believe that the adaptive courseware helped them learn the material, 93%. 89.83 believe the courseware helped them improve their overall performance in the class. It's huge. And then even, I like this one, 88.98% of the students said that they would prefer to take a future class using this courseware rather than taking a class in the future that didn't use it. So they really are embracing this courseware. We're also seeing increases in the student success overall in the course. We've seen a full 10% increase in students completing the course with a C or better since we implemented this courseware beginning in 2019. And remember, this happened even through COVID. So to see that kind of increase is really phenomenal. So faculty who are here, I really urge you to consider an adaptive courseware solution for your classes. The effort, the time, and the energy involved really is worth it. And if you're an administrator here, please offer support and energy to your faculty so they can embark on this transformative process. I promise you that it will be worth it. So I do want to remind you that we are going to take questions at the end, but please feel free to use the chat. And I want to turn it back over to Susan to introduce our next speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Stacey, thank you so much. You know, there's been a couple questions in the chat around the courseware, and we've been kind of listing some of them. And I think a question that's probably arriving for people is, it sounds like you were able to give courseware choices to the faculty just in the collaboration, but I'm curious how you got to choose your courseware. Would you mind speaking a little bit about that?
Sure, of course. Yeah, sorry, I didn't have my chat open while I was talking. So
no, we got you.
Yeah. So we all were given open opportunity to determine what courseware we wanted to use. So for me, I worked with my Center for Learning Excellence, instructional designer and technologist, and basically gave them some
Person using headphones.
Main things I wanted. I wanted something that was open educational resource, and I wanted a system that was one that would not stop students from continuing on. I wanted it to be a more open adaptive courseware. So there's different levels. If some of the adaptive courseware is basically, if you don't finish module A, you can't go to module B. in something class like a science or a math class that may be really important. In psychology, it wasn't. So my learning center actually did the hard work for me and identified several of the coursewares that were open educational resource and did what I wanted to do. And we had meetings. We did, I think it was Zoom or WebEx then, and that was even pre-COVID, so we weren't even doing it very often. So it was a big deal to have these meetings with them to see the courseware. And we very quickly decided on Lumen.
Great.
The person gestures.
We've
Thank
heard that
you.
Lumen test questions are out there online for students to access. Any thoughts about that?
I don't believe that's the case. Online, all the exam questions are in the Blackboard management system or your LMS. So those are not shared unless someone else shares them. In fact, it's set up so you can't export it. They do have, it's open access to have
The person makes hand gestures.
the, like the study plans and the things that are in the modules to help students learn the self-checks. Those probably have gotten out, but those are just reading checks and helping students learn. They're very low stakes for me in my classes, so I have not found that issue at all at this point.
Great, Stacy. Thank you so much. Rwanda.
Thank you. So to introduce our second speaker, Janine Wilson is actually graduating from Indian River State College next week and is graciously giving her time today in the midst of finals. So thank you so much, Janine. She is a health information management major, and her goal is to run her own coding business. She's a graduate of NYU School of Dentistry and a proud mother. So Janine will be bringing the student perspective. We've asked her to share how adaptive courseware was used in her courses and in what ways it impacted her learning. I present Janine.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Janine Wilson, and as she said, I do attend Indian River State College at this time, and I am graduating next week. And so I've been using courseware for the last 2 years in my program for health information management. Now, what I found in courseware is that it's for the blended learner. It works for the employee that wants to change their career and has a family at home or can go to school part-time. It also does is good for a person who handles blended classes better than a face-to-face situation. And it's also built for, us later lifers. I'm 51, I'm a late lifer in education. And so I'm seeking my degree and I'm using courseware. And as Stacy said, it does benefit us. It does help us. It does help us to be more successful. Now, some of the benefits to it is that it's not only for all types of walk of life seeking higher education, but it has the flexibilities in the scheduling, as well as the blended digital learning through the courseware that is provided. Now, with the courseware, you have to understand that it's not like the professors are giving you courseware work and just sending you to the wolves. They're not. The professors are always available to answer any questions and assist with navigating the courseware because they're picking, as Susan said, their software that they want to use that will be beneficial to their students. So you're always going to have that accessibility to your professor because navigating the courseware sometimes is not that easy, especially if you've not been in school for several years. And once again, Stacy said, I'm sorry, I have to rely back on you, Stacy, so much, but you said that it wasn't readily accessible until 2019, until pandemic time. So with that, they've done some advancements on it. It's not just for the person who's working and needs an art class. It's no longer that anymore. So there, with the teaching structures that the courseware affords you, there are video lessons, and then the courseware that is affiliated with the integrated with the lessons. Or you can do it in-phase class to class and then courseware after. So it would be like half the class would be face-to-face or Zoom, and then the other half would be all courseware work. You also have the courseware that has the built-in tutor for you. So even if you couldn't get your professor right then and there at that moment, there's a tutor built into the software so that you're able to get that answer that you desperately need at that moment, which is always beneficial. With Cengage, you can compare how you began to where you are currently, with Pearson's My Math Lab. I loved Pearson's. You always was able to ask the instructor or have them work out an example for you. And this is beneficial to any student because you need that answer right then and there. And having the answer example worked out for you helps you learn through step by step. And that is also beneficial because it's teaching you in a different way than what your professor showed you. But at the same time, they're coordinated that they're getting the same result. I also used AHEMA for my statistics. Now that was interesting in itself because AHEMA is this worldwide organization that provided statistics learning and courseware for that program, and it was challenging. It was challenging, but it was rewarding at the same time because of the challenges that it afforded me. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about some of the benefits. Now, I love the benefit of the read back. I find that the read back is most beneficial to any student that is a mother or working. You get to multitask and listen to that read back either on your headphones, your Bluetooth, whatever you're using, AirPods, and you can still do other things, which is, it's a godsend. And most of the courseware work did afford that luxury. There was a couple that didn't, but for the most part, once I found out that they could read back to you, I asked my professors every semester, is there a book and a courseware to go with this program, this module? And always there usually was. So I was very thankful and that helped me get through my courses nicely. You also, courseware, which is beneficial to any student, is that it's accessible anywhere. You can get on a tablet, you can get on your phone, you know, you don't have to be sitting in front of a PC. You can pull out your laptop anywhere you go. I went to Las Vegas and took all of my schoolwork with me. Yes, I traveled with my books, but I was able to do my courseware work through the laptop that I took and still go out and have fun in Las Vegas. So can you imagine? And then also the benefit to bundling. If they bundle the textbook with the courseware work, it's a cheaper cost and it's even more so beneficial. So if you ever get the chance, make sure that you check with your professors to find out if there is. And professors, try and get courseware work that is bundled because that is most cost effective for us students. So in summary, you got blended classes, you have you have blended classes, you have classes that are catered to the students' needs and access to the professors. And of course, we're geared toward the student being successful. That's another thing Stacy said. The courseware is always beneficial because it allows for a student to become successful in their class. And that is the most important thing that you want to achieve in courseware. So that's what I got from it. If it's anything else short of courseware, I don't think that I would have been as successful in my classes. And I was always a face-to-face student. I was never an online or blended adaptive courseware person at all. So now I've learned and it's benefited me. I'm graduating with nice grades because of courseware work. Thank you guys.
Wilson laughs.
Awesome, Janine. So sweet. I love it. You know, I think Ramon and I are packing our bags already. We're going to Las Vegas with you. So that's the best delivery ever. I love it. I love it. And what I really hear from you is that transformation of like, I'm not an online learner to now I can do it online. And really the adaptive courseware kind of, you know, helped you to see that there's real possibilities. So those feedback loops can be very, very powerful. And that's really helpful to know. But like Stacy said, we need to design that, right? Like we need to be thoughtful about how it gets deployed. And I think that's the piece that we've really learned in terms of our lessons, right? It's not just to turn it on and here you go. You know, there's some thought to be
guidance to it. So. Exactly. And we look for the professors to do that, to take us into consideration on how we learn as individuals. And with that, they get the right courseware work, like Stacy said. She picked it out for her students based on how she knew they learned, and it benefited them and her. It made it easier for her also. So it was a nice combination for everyone.
Great. And congratulations on graduating next week. We're really grateful for you. Yeah, thank you.
The person smiles and gives 2 thumbs up.
All right, well, next up, we're going to bring Dwayne Keeney up to the plate here. Dwayne serves as the Associate Dean of Liberal Arts at the East Campus at Tri-C, where he's completing his 20th year serving in both district-wide and campus-wide based leadership roles. And he took a leadership role in the campus-wide adaptive courseware program, and this is where we met him, where he will share his experience from around facilitating the program itself and the initiative. So Dwayne, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to use my time to do two things. One, I'm going to give you what I hope to be about a 5-minute recap of the process here at Tri-C. Stacy has alluded a little bit about how it kind of took off once faculty were made aware. But I have a little bit about kind of the back end even prior to that. And we'll try to take it from that point to
Keeney gestures.
Where we leave it today in about 5 minutes. So we're going to skip over a whole lot of detail. And then I'm going to ask you for some suggestions on what you'd like me to use another 5 minutes to talk in more detail about. We will have Q&A time at the end, of course, but I wanted to give you a little more input into what aspect of the implementation might be most interesting to you. So one of the questions I was asked to talk about was how this came to be at Tri-C. And interestingly, our then Associate Vice President of Teaching and Learning, and I'm butchering the title, but that's what she was, responded to the grant request. And by the time the award was made, she had been promoted to essentially Assistant Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, and her position had not been filled. My colleague, Kara DePaul, who you will see if you read the Tri-C case study, was running Teaching and Learning on her own, was running the administration of that on her own college-wide. And so I was asked to join with her to help with some of the logistics of getting this process rolling. And I scribbled down a couple of notes as both Janine and Stacy were talking. And
The person smiles.
Stacy said something, and I think I'm quoting here, something along the lines, I didn't even really know what adaptive courseware meant. Initially, we were asked to reach out to a handful of faculty who had responded to a word of mouth request who might be interested in playing around with adaptive learning if we get this grant money. And that's what we started to do. And we realized very quickly, because my colleague Kara is very experienced in these kinds of things, that was not going to get us the kind of support and buy-in that we were really going to need. And we were going to be overlooking some folks. So despite our directive, we went out college-wide and asked every full-time faculty member at the college if they wanted to come play. And what happened when that first group of about 8 or so faculty showed up to meet Susan, Rwanda, and some others was that we found out that almost nobody knew what adaptive courseware meant. The majority, if they had an idea, assumed it had to do with accessibility because we had adaptive readers and those kinds of things on computer labs. And we got a crash course. And our at the time, one member of our investigative team of faculty that came had been doing some preliminary work with one of her publishers in business and economics. And so she knew, and she was the only one that I had to ask specially to come to the info session. And I think Rwanda tells this story that when she showed up the first day, I let her know that Michelle Hampton was key to our success with faculty and that she had agreed to come for day 1, but day 2 was iffy unless we kind of knocked her socks off. And Rwanda and Susan knocked her socks off with the rest of their team of partners. And Michelle became kind of our internal expert around this, largely because of the relationship she had with publishers, because of the experience she had with courseware that was in fact adaptive. And through that, we ended up pulling this team that grew to about 13 faculty members, most of whom well, about half of whom, I suppose, were able to be at that first working session, that 2-day event. And that was probably late May. And our goal was always to have a course or two ready to go the following January. We had a course or two ready to go in late August, and all but one of the faculty participants had a course going in January. And that was a testament to a couple of different things. One, our team made a commitment that every nickel of the grant money that we received from Every Learner Everywhere was going to essentially faculty release time. The college bore the costs of the administrative time and the administrative support. Our partners at Achieving the Dream and the other Every Learner Everywhere partners were very gracious, letting us free ride and piggyback everywhere we could, so that we didn't use a nickel of that grant money to attend a conference, to buy a supply. We used our own resources where we could. We borrowed and I won't say begged, but we borrowed and conned our way into whatever else we needed along the way, so that we were able to offer all faculty that wanted to participate a nominal amount of a release time each semester, that they continue to play along throughout the year. So faculty spent that time investigating products, working with our internal centers for teaching and learning that we call the Centers for Learning Excellence. And that's where all of that time and energy and the funding source was based.
Adjusts glasses.
I can't let this pass without calling out both Stacy and Michelle Hampton, because of the work that they've done. And I see in the chat the issue of scaling is coming through there. If Michelle was our resident expert, Stacy became our den mother. And Stacy has a daughter, doesn't have a son, so she's not gotten to be the Cub Scout den mother thing in that venue, but she is with us because she is very active in our college-wide teaching and learning community. And the thing that she did was keep us excited, keep the faculty excited, and demonstrate just what was possible. Michelle chose a very established publisher,
Keeney.
and but was able to bring an energy to that they came back to her. They came back to her students asking for feedback, and they tailored courses and their courseware designed to meet her recommendations. And in psychology, with what Stacy had done, they were grateful for any support they could have at that point. And what has ended up happening is an expansion of the psychology suite there, and an ability to kind of use that, what began as a
Keeney wears a colorful tie.
a single course, to apply that into multiple courses in psychology. And in both of those instances, the energy that was expended going out to the courseware designers and publishers has come back in the form of a product that is successful enough that other faculty at the institution have chosen to adopt it. And it's in those two instances, those two disciplines, where the adaptive courseware has been deployed across multiple campuses, across lots of different faculty. And the numbers truly do kind of warrant the time and energy that went into it. We have a lot of faculty that played that are still engaged in what they did, but their interest was for their course and their course alone, maybe only one of the courses they teach on a regular basis. And they were not interested in being the person to pilot and lead the design and be the project expert and the den mother and those kinds of things. And that's great. Quite honestly, I don't know that the college has the resources to promote scaling more than two disciplines all at one time anyway. So that is about the 5-minute recap of where we started and where we ended up. But I do have a little bit more time. So if I can ask my colleague that has a control of such things to put the poll up on the screen, I will ask you to tell me which of these you think you're most interested in hearing more about. The faculty learning community, how we structured that gathering of the faculty and the kind of the rules that they chose to operate by. The faculty development support, our Centers for Learning Excellence, and the way that we were able to, or the way that we chose to support the faculty in the learning community. The administrative processes, that's where Kara and I kind of came into the process. And, it's keeping the lights on, right? Anything that the faculty came back and said they need, it was our job to figure out how to get it for them. The external partnerships, I can talk a bit about the partnerships that Stacy and Michelle have had with publishers, a bit about the partnerships that we have had with Digital Promise and others in the ELE partnership. And then finally, sustaining and scaling, how we were able to kind of continue the momentum in a couple of those courses, a couple of those disciplines, and see it impact hundreds and thousands of students instead of tens and tens of students. So if you will go ahead and submit what your choice is, we'll use the top one or two of those for a few more minutes of conversation.
All right, we're at about 76%, folks, of a couple more to add, and then I'll end it and share out the results.
And you'll notice I didn't put a sixth choice up there that said stop talking. So you don't get to vote for that. So, okay, it seems pretty clear, faculty learning community and sustaining and scaling coming out on top. So anything that was here that we don't get to in this period, please feel free to bring back in the general Q&A at the back end. And I'm going to ask, especially Stacy, as I talk about the FLC, and the scaling issue both, if there are things that I should be saying that I'm not, please don't hesitate to either jump into the conversation or to the text. The faculty learning community was I'll say it was the idea, the brainchild of Kara DePaul, my colleague, who was coming from that direction, who, having worked with a broader range of faculty on teaching and learning issues, knew that we were not going to get very far at all if we tried to prescribe to faculty what this experience needed to be. And so from the first days after the initial visit from our ELE partners, we talked to the faculty who had an interest, and we framed it as a conversation. We want to gather a group of faculty. We want to support you in learning and researching and figuring out whether this is something you're interested in. And we broke the release time up into multiple semesters. And we essentially said, just play for the first semester. Come to the FLC meetings, learn about what others might be interested in, see how that compares to what you might be interested in. And if you are interested in continuing, great. And if not, you can move out. And only one or two left. And it was generally because they discovered that there was an adaptive courseware product that did what they needed in their discipline. One of our early faculty was an art faculty member, and she very early got connected with a publisher that the last time I talked to her, she was still engaged with conversations with the publisher because they were interested in picking her brain about what art history and art theory faculty could use in a product, but nothing existed for her to start with. So she stuck in for a little while and then left. This was, again, pre-COVID, but as Stacy mentioned, we are a multi-campus institution. We have 4 campuses spread across Cuyahoga County, and it can take 35 to 40 minutes to get from one end of the county to the other, from one campus to the other. And faculty decided that this FLC was not going to rely on remote meetings, allowing people to call in. They were going to gather only once a month or so, and they were going to do it in person. And that was their rule to become and stay a part of the community. It didn't mean if you missed one, you were kicked out, but it meant if you were going to participate, you needed to dedicate yourself and devote the afternoon once a month to come and spend time with the FLC. And from that point, the FLC members really kind of set their own rules. Kara and I did two things for them. We helped to handle the logistics, organize the meetings, make sure they had a place to go. They had a basic agenda. We would, one or both of us would show up to do introductions and to welcome everybody and let them know how important the work they were considering was. And then we would facilitate the support of our faculty development folks, our Centers for Learning Excellence at each campus, by involving them. And I, at the time, supervised one of those centers and had colleagues at the other campuses who did the same. So I was able to kind of marshal those resources a bit. And outside of that, the faculty members themselves handled the agenda setting and the work. And they very quickly tasked the Center for Learning Excellence folks with helping them figure out what was out there. And our CLE folks went about doing I'm certainly not completely exhaustive, but a fairly exhaustive guide of what what adaptive courseware products were available that had products that would match particular courses or disciplines that our faculty were interested in. And interestingly, it broke down pretty clearly. You might do a search for adaptive courseware and come up with 10 or 12 vendors. But if you start looking for adaptive courseware that excels in a particular discipline or two, you're down to 3. And for some folks like Stacy, OER was the most important, certain functionality was, and our folks put together a course guide that has not been updated since the pandemic. So I'm sure it's in need of that. But that we have shared freely with colleagues across the country as they're beginning this process. That's kind of a starting place of, if you want these features, if you want this emphasis, if you want this discipline, here's where you start your search. So that's the FLC piece. This is the scalability. I've already mentioned that we went 2 routes with what we're really pushing to scale. And psychology, that began in our Gen 1010, or not our general psych course, our Psych 1010 course, now includes our lifespan, our child development, our aging course, all have some reach into these Lumen products around psychology. And the Pearson products in the business courses and the economics courses are all of those are being taught at least on multiple campuses with multiple full-time and part-time faculty. And we have off-campus offerings that we do with partners. They use the product as well. So I'd be happy to answer more specific questions about that in the Q&A, but I have to kind of throw things back to Susan here so she can kind of lead us on to the next stage of the agenda.
Keeney rubs his eye.
Well, Rhonda and I both are here to field the Q&A questions. I don't think I need to pull up the deck for that, right, Rwanda? I'm good there.
No, you're good.
All right. So we wanted to open it up to questions. We've gotten a chance to see the perspective from faculty, see the perspective from students, see the perspective from the administration. So feel free to fire away your questions. You can take off the mute on your computer or put questions in the chat for us.
Any questions? Julian, are you about to share? Thank you.
Yes. I'm fairly new to all this adaptive courseware terminology and everything. So I did pick up on some comments about OER and its interactions with adaptive courseware. And I wonder if anybody could just speak to what that looks like in particular.
I could talk about how Lumen does this. So the adaptive courseware route with the OER for that is Lumen takes generally, at least for general psychology and others, already established OER resources that are out there. So far, I believe the general psychology course is based off of OpenStax. So they take that material as their basis and then they curate it and change it and adapt it and update it as they need to for this.
The person gestures emphatically with her hands.
so you could go to Lumen Waymaker right now and find the full psychology textbook and all the interactives that are involved with that. What the students then, what the courseware does actually is it's a $25 fee for students. And then it's embeds directly into Blackboard. And so what they're paying for then is the actual adaptive courseware itself. So the courseware works so that as they're going through the OER material and the study plans, it's color coding for them. So as they complete each tile of the module, it will color code it green if they're doing really well and they should keep going. It gives it, I think it's orange, and it gives them a little like, oh, you might need to do a little more with this, right? So it kind of helps them learn when they've learned it and when they can move on. So they have done a really good job just using that material that's there. And what's really great about that too, being open education resources, is if we don't like something, they make changes for us all the time. So I'm actually just sent them an email yesterday, and we're still in process, but I was teaching a section in the lifespan development section. I'm like, I really don't like what you have in here about Vygotsky. It's just, we need to reword this. So we're working on rewording it. It's because it is their product and moving things. We can make changes as we need to make it work. Does that help a little bit? I'm happy to talk more with you offline too, if you like.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to throw in and I'll keep this brief. I got very excited at the first meeting of this team. And again, it was a late May thing. And I was scheduled to teach a summer class at Cleveland State that summer. And I thought, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to abandon the textbook I've been using for 20 years at that point, and I'm going to do this. So I quickly did some research into an OER adaptive product. And I don't want to ding the product and the vendor. It wasn't ready for prime time, but boy, I rushed it. You have to understand how these products work before you try to deliver them to your students, because they're going to come to you with questions. And I thought the software did things that it didn't do. I thought that it was adaptive in ways that it was not adapting to their needs and their usage. And it was a miserable experience for my students. And I ended up abandoning it halfway through the semester. And it was all it was me. It was, but that would have been the same if it was a more established vendor with a proprietary product. But they would have likely had more supports involved. Tech support and others that were not available, because I went with the completely free option. Well, it was free for a reason, at that point. Not that I'm not a supporter of low cost and OER and everything else. I absolutely am. And in fact, that was a duality we had. Our college had a couple of initiatives at the time that we got this grant. And one of them was low cost and OER and no cost student resources. So we had faculty like Stacy who had jumped on board that OER train, and then we're coming back to them and saying, hey, how about this grant where we're going to ask you to look at these vendor products that are going to cost students $150 a semester. And so it was a balancing act. There are some very good OER options and low cost options if you know what you're looking for.
Keeney drinks from a red can.
Yes, Kay, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. So I have used Lumen probably the first semester, the pandemic, once the pandemic hit. One of the issues that I found at that point was that
Speaker indicates the size of something with her hands.
I was in a different place at that time, but the college's
Speaker gestures with both hands.
outcomes for that course were different from the way Lumen had things organized. And you're right, you can move tiles around, but it's difficult to move them from one module to another, from one chapter to another. It's almost impossible, to be honest. It was very confusing. But so I was just curious whether your objectives, your course was like chapter 12 matches your chapter 12 and, etc. And then second, you talked about all these percentages, 80% of my students did this and 70%. That was just in that one course, correct? That's not as compared to, right? So what I mean is it's not spring to fall, fall to spring, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering if you had any data like that on any courses in general, which showed fall to fall persistence, spring to spring persistence, or whatever satisfaction rates or whatever the parameters that you considered. Yeah, so those are my two questions. Thank you.
Well, so for us, with Lumen lined up very well with our outcomes and how things were set up, which made it easy for us. So I do think that's part of the things to consider when you're looking for a provider, right? If it's lining up well with what you are already doing in your system, it's going to be a lot easier of a process. I will say that Lumen has developed and changed a lot over the last couple of years. They've added a lot more things, so it might be easier now. So definitely look at that. In terms of the data, I mean, Dwayne might be able to pop in more with some of the bigger data features, but the percentages I gave you was the survey that was done over at all classes at Eastern Campus overall. So it wasn't just my course, it was any class. It was given to all students at Eastern Campus for fall semester. The 10% rate of students increase in success has come, that's over time. So that was looking at the data from before we started using it until now, kind of what we're seeing. So we are seeing students in general are doing better now than they did previously overall, but Dwayne might know more about the other data.
That last point is very true. And psychology, sadly, as we started to get numbers that were large enough, and Susan can probably shed more light on this, but we had a number of classes where the ends in the actual sections, the course sections, were a little too small to be useful in the data analysis. And then COVID hit, right? So we started doing this, and then we all got sent home. And so we lost our first semester of scaled size data because it was interrupted by the transition in March of 20. And so we've struggled with some of that. But with psychology, because the Eastern Campus, we very quickly in that second semester moved to all courses, regardless of modality at Eastern Campus, all Psych 1010s went to the Lumen Learning System, and Stacy and Melissa worked to train the faculty on how to use it and integrate it. We were able to follow the success rates from that semester on. And it is not the official statistically significant ends by course section where you've got a control and you've got an experimental group that Digital Promise has been doing. They've still got all of that. We just very quickly looked at success rates before we moved all the courses to adaptive courseware and after corresponding semesters, similar ends overall. Enrollment was basically the same. And outcomes were improving by 9 to 11%, depending on whether it was fall, spring, or summer. So we can supply more info on that, but that's the one. I would love to get back into the business data, but we just can't, we're just not there yet.
Thank
It's
you.
an ongoing, oh, go ahead.
No,
Okay.
I was going to say, Susan, can you give your perspective on a more national level or something like that? Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's an ongoing process, right? So that iteration is really, really important, and also getting in touch with your IR departments, right? So knowing what are the data points that we want to be able to grab sort of at the institution level, but also at the course level with the coursework, because it's just so powerful. Why not, right? But it does take some thought. How do we think through these things? And it needs to be contextualized to each particular campus, each particular department, to be able to align those outcomes and understand, where are we going from here? And Rwanda's got her hand up. I know she's going to clarify that as well.
No. I just received a question that I have for Janine. How has adaptive courseware changed you as a student?
Text Jareen Wilson.
Adaptive courseware work has changed me as a student. It's made me more confident. I'm going to be very honest with you. I am a second guesser. I second guess everything. All my answers on my quizzes. This is why I'm not a great tester, because I second guess everything. But with the courseware, with it reaffirming what my professor has already started out teaching me, it's made it so that I'm a lot more confident in my first answer now, because it reinforced what I've already learned. And being able to go back in and look at my answers and look at the questions just gives me more confidence in knowing that I can take this next test and I'm going to be successful in getting the answers correctly because I've been able to go back and retry. The assessments on some of these are not locked in where you can't go back and do it again, so that makes it more beneficial. But the answer is it's made me very much so more confident in my answering.
Thank you. Thank
welcome.
you. Really appreciate that. And again, congratulations on graduating next week and good luck on your finals. We are here at time, so we want to thank all of you for joining this session. And there also reminder that we will be starting in 5 minutes. We'll be starting the action planning time if you're interested in working through that an action plan template to take all these thoughts that are ruminating and get them down on paper. So please join us if you're able. And again, I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists, Dwayne Keeney, Stacy Souther, and Janine Wilson. You are all incredible. And a big thank you to Every Learner Everywhere for support of this initiative. And may we all continue to advance equity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The person smiles and nods.